Hi, I'm Shannon Miller. And I know that you have likely just spoken with one of our staff members about, you know, really seemingly personal, very personal information about your loved one who's going through a long term care situation, or you and your family are thinking about long term care and potentially doing some Medicaid planning, or just getting information about what might be needed with regard to your loved ones. Sometimes you're coming to us in crisis. Sometimes you're coming to us after someone's had an event, like they fell, or they're just declining generally. And you're concerned because you understand what the expense of long-term care is, and that you don't have long-term care insurance. Whatever the reason is that they've set you up with the Medicaid planning intake, I want to talk a little bit about why we collected the information that we collected and what you can expect during our conference call. And I also want to direct you to some resources so that we make good use of the time that we have together. Long-term care Medicaid in Florida is pretty complicated, if you haven't figured that out already. There are a lot of criteria for qualification. Really, there's two parts that we're going to talk about. The first is, really what are you looking for? When we say Medicaid, there are lots of different programs that fall under Medicaid. For the majority of people, when they come to us, they're looking for skilled nursing facility, long-term care, sometimes memory care, but there are very few memory care facilities that take Medicaid. That are traditional long-term care Medicaid. So that is primarily what we're going to be talking about today, although I will always be offering you some other suggestions for Medicaid if that criteria is not what you're looking for. So what that means physically is that your loved one is suffering from really, needing help with all the activities of daily living. So bathing, transferring from bed to chair, ambulating. They may have falls on occasion. They may have incontinence, even if occasional incontinence. And then they have trouble with feeding themselves. And that doesn't mean just taking the fork and getting it to your mouth. It means that they can't cook a meal. They can't get to the grocery store. They can't, prepare a meal and then clean it up, that they may need help with that. So those are the activities of daily living that basically you need to be unable to do all of those things in order to qualify for Medicaid. And I will say that the standard for qualification is pretty low, and there's a team of trained professionals who will assess that. They're called the CARES team. I think right now, during the pandemic, they're doing it by Zoom. They may do it by phone. Basically what they're looking for is someone who really does require that highest level of care. And they're probably nearing the sunsetting part of their lives. So that's the physical component. The financial component to qualification is that basically you have $2,000 or less of assets, and your income is $2,100, approximately $2,100 or less. And of course, this is 2020, so those numbers change, and we always want to keep an eye on that. When you come to us, if you have something higher than that, there may be some way of kind of assessing those assets, shifting those assets. Not like giving them away in order to qualify for Medicaid, because that is prohibited, and it can create disqualification from benefits for extended periods of time, depending on how much money is transferred. So when people come to us, typically they have a little bit of money left. They have a home, and homestead is exempt in Florida from qualification. So that means that they don't consider the value of your home unless it's over like $567,000. So if you have a home, that's not going to disqualify you from receiving Medicaid. In addition, if you have a spouse, They can have a substantial amount of money. I think it's $126,000. And they can have those like, in a bank account, or they can have it in a money market. Retirement assets in Florida are not counted so long as you are taking required minimum distributions from your retirement accounts on a monthly basis. It will count as your income, but it won't count against you for qualification purposes. And I know I'm running through these things very quickly. We're going to talk about them again during your discussion with me, but I'm just giving you the basics because you're going to hear it again, and I think it's important for you to be prepared. The other issue that we run into quite frequently, we've talked about retirement, we've talked about homes, we've talked about spouses. There are some other things that we can do with assets that exceed the $2,000 limit, and that is using something called a personal services contract, where you basically pay your family or your care providers to provide services to you for the rest of your life, and in exchange you can pay them in a lump sum. The other way, a strategy that we use frequently, is something called rental income producing property. We'll talk about that in more detail, but if you have property that you rent out and it's providing income to you, Medicaid allows you to keep that property and then qualify for Medicaid, but they're going to get the income from that property during your lifetime. But if you use another technique that we talk a lot about, not in this video, but there are other videos that we have talking about enhanced life estate deeds, you have the ability to pass rental income producing property and homestead property on to your loved ones without going through a probate process. So that can be a really good tool for planning for Medicaid. So these are the things that we're going to talk about during that initial call. I encourage you to look at our YouTube channel to review any of this information again through any of the videos that we have there. Review our website, because we also have quite a bit of little blogs and information related to Medicaid planning, and also to print out the Medicaid Basics worksheet that you'll find in the links part of our webpage that can provide lots of information that I've just talked about, and also more up-to-date information about some other issues that might exist for you, as well as some other programs that might exist. So that's the overview. I look forward to speaking to you. I just would remind people that we do only have an hour, so as much as you can do with the pre-education for yourself, being ready to take notes, come prepared with your questions, and I look forward to talking to you and trying to figure out how we might be able to help with you or your loved ones' long-term care needs and dealing with potentially Medicaid planning. One thing that we will do at that meeting is we will, if in fact you decide you want to hire us, we'll be able to quote you a fee. Of course, we don't really know what that fee looks like until we get a chance to talk to you to see what we might need to do to get you ready for that type of planning. So, but we will be prepared to do that at our meeting. All right, I look forward to speaking to you, and I am Shannon Miller. Bye-bye.